Okay, then I want you to read an excerpt from the book.
Okay.
And I put it in the email. So if you go to the email, it'll
Okay.
be right there.
I just pulled it up. Hi, how are you?
I'm really well. How are you?
I am okay. I just I'm good. I'm happy to see you.
Hi, everybody. I want to welcome you today to another episode, and I am overjoyed to be face-to-face again, and hopefully face-to-face again soon in Boston with my dear friend who's in California right now, Anne Heffron, the author of You Don't Look Adopted, my favorite title in the whole world, and writing coach. And we'll talk a little bit about her work with other folks, another person named Joyce. But in the meantime, there's a lot I could say about Anne, but I'd love to just hear from Anne. Anne, thank you for joining us in conversation with.
Oh, Kevin, thanks for having me.
I want to start us out, if you don't mind. Could you please read an excerpt from You Don't Look Adopted?
Sure. I love that you had to email this to me. So this is from a section titled Girls. It wasn't until I started teaching writing at the girls' juvenile hall as an adult that I saw people who carried the same basic impulse I did. During our training session, the other teachers would marvel at the girls' repeated bad choices, drunk driving, repeated drug use, unprotected sex with multiple partners. The girls compulsively ruined any opportunity given to them. All of these girls, in one way or another, had been abandoned by their mother. And the result, at least for me, and I think for them, was the driving need to throw themselves away again and again in the effort of finally getting it right. For if your mother threw you away, if she left you, if she hurt you, even unintentionally, some part of your brain is going to think that that was the right thing to do. And you'll go down that abandonment path again and again while people talk to you about personal responsibility and self-love and pride. And even though their words sound nice and give you some hope, that one damaged piece of your brain informs the marrow of your bones, the root of all your actions. And so you don't have a chance in hell of not fucking that guy. I lost my place. And so you don't have a chance in hell of not fucking that guy who is going to hurt you and then drive away because the mother voice in your brain told you that was a good idea, told you that you are disposable. And at the end of the day, you're a good girl and you listen to your mama.
It's funny how you lost that place. I think you wanted to read that sentence twice.
Yeah, I just wanted to say fucking twice.
I think you wanted to say, you don't have a chance in hell.
Oh yeah, you don't have a chance in hell.
You don't have a chance in hell. Let's riff on that for a minute. This is something that goes way back for us in our discussions. You know my life. Just so if anyone doesn't know, the first time I ever met Anne was on Twitter, and we never met face to face. I don't even think we ever spoke. And we met in Boston after she had been kind enough to be the first adoptee ever to read my book when it was still in draft form. And it was almost harrowing for me because it was like heart pounding out of my chest, but you knew everything about me then. You knew everything that a lot of people in the world know about me now, but that was the first time anyone else had really gone to those depths with me. And you didn't blink. You sat with me, you had coffee, we had lunch, we had fun, we laughed. How do we laugh after all that, after what you just read? Not a chance in hell. How do we laugh?
Sort of, I mean, what comes to mind is dancing on the head of a pin. Like you kind of, I don't know, like freedom, what is it? Freedom's just another word for nothing left to lose. Like when it's all burned down, then you're left on the head of a pin. And so what is there left to do but to dance? And I mean, you and I, when we met, I mean, one of the responses, I think one of the healthiest responses to trauma is play. You know, that I remember we were putting your book, trying to figure out which bestseller table to put your book on and take pictures of. And there's, if you're one of the lucky ones, like that's an impulse, the play impulse. And I don't mean to say that the other people that don't have that aren't lucky. Well, I guess I don't think they're lucky, because it's really hard. If you don't laugh and don't play, it's really hard, right? Like, I mean, we
Is
can do
there-
both. We can cry and then we can do something silly.
Is there a sense of the impulses might be there, the impulse to dance might be there, but for me, honestly, for quite a while, it was, I'm not worthy. I'm
Mhm.
not worthy. I don't deserve to dance. And
Right.
how do we uncover those impulses? How do we peel that away? Because maybe some of us aren't born with it or don't have it, but others have it and just don't feel like they've earned the right to actually dance on the head of the pin. How can I do that? Why would I ever have value enough or give that value to myself? You've experienced that, I know, and so have I. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think so. I've done these classes with Pam Cordano with just adopted people. Started out as 2 classes of 25 people each. And what I saw, I so strongly believe in community for adoptees, because I think it's the way that we get to be mirrored. And it's very hard to not love yourself a little bit more when you start falling in love with other adoptees around you. And because you want for them the very thing that we're talking about, like you can see in adoptees, oh my gosh, if they would just be lighter on themselves, or if they would just drop this need to hurt themselves over and over again. They're so joyful inside and they're so smart and they have so much to offer, and you can just see them hurting themselves. And then it comes to you that, wait, well, I'm doing that also. So if I want these good things for them, why wouldn't I want it for myself? And I think that we're used to kind of living as a sacrifice, right? Like I've been mirrored by these people who I disappointed in some way or another, that I wasn't related to them by blood, or that I didn't look like them, or that I wasn't exactly who they wanted. And really what that's about is they also weren't who I wanted, but it was easier to turn it on myself instead of looking at my own caregivers and expressing heartbreak. And there's a shift that happens when it's adoptee to adoptee. And it's like when we met, right? I just wanted the best for you. You just wanted the best for me. And we can meet in that place where we know that we've seen really hard things, but that we want better for those that are coming after us. And it's almost an act of will of, sure, we could just go down the toilet and say, okay, well, that was hard. Or, part of it is to believe that it can be different. That people, there's little kids right now who are 3 or 4 years old, like a little Kevin and a little Anne. Like, do they have to go through all that? Not so sure. Pretty sure not. Because so much of our pain was based on secrecy and shame.
And the shame builds and becomes a way of life for us and becomes an expectation for me. And the breaking free of that is, as you say, much more possible, not always, but much more possible, or at least probable, in community, and especially in community with other adoptees. I found your efforts to really talk about self-compassion have always, been prominent in your writing and your talking and your thinking. So I'm going to read something that you may know this. I'll put up the post. When an egg is dropped or breaks, or a glass of milk is dropped and spills, no one looks at the egg and milk and wonders why. They are all over the place, a mess, disorganized. So how come adopted people keep thinking they have to apologize for their scattered minds? You wrote that. I found it.
Yeah, that makes me teary, because I just think about what it was like to be a student in elementary school or junior high or high school, and my brain would not allow me to focus. And it's so painful to feel that you are failing and it's your fault. And can you imagine if there had been a counselor at school, and maybe this would be terrible, maybe this would feel isolating, but who would pick you out and say, this is your adopted, this is what happens. And I know people could argue that that's creating a problem where maybe there isn't one, but I would argue there is one 100% of the time. Even for the kids that are getting all A's, that's its own kind of dysfunction, I think.
That perfectionism, that trying to earn that value, earn that worth.
Mhm.
You, in your post, and this is a Twitter post, I'll link to it below. You also made a note, that if adopted people really understood the effects of the brain after a baby is separated from the mother, perhaps they would ease up on themselves a bit and stop pressing the accelerator down on an exhausted car. My head is like your head. It's always been that gyro, just, and the quieting of that gyro, maybe meds could help it and have in the past. But there have been tools at my disposal now that through our community and through other help, therapy, and, you worked with Pam and I work with somebody, I found that there are processes. Now, they're not always the same for each other. Mine are specific to mindfulness, self-compassion, and a lot of breathing exercises and a lot of things that maybe I've learned from you and others. What are your processes that allow you to not to stop pressing the accelerator down on an exhausted car? What are the things that you do that really help you to keep that gyro in place and keep it from spinning out of control and taking care of yourself?
Well, I only figured it out last week.
I know. And that's why it's so refreshing, because I've just really come up with new pieces of mind. The mindfulness, self-compassion just dawned on me. I've been practicing it for a year. Go ahead. What'd you tell everyone what you figured out last week?
Well, I have been living in this really beautiful place for 2 years, Spirit Hill Farm, and it's, to most people, it would look like I live in heaven. But for me, it was extremely stressful because it's 2.5 acres of land that I thought I was supposed to control. And so I just walked around feeling anxious all the time because plants grow and die, and there was nothing, I didn't know how to take care of plants or chickens or a watering system. And it just felt like my world was constantly on the edge of collapse. And I realized as I was preparing to leave Spirit Hill, I realized, oh my gosh, you could put me in the most perfect place in the world, and it would always be like this. Like, it would always be like a ball of stress and anxiety. And the common denominator, of course, is me. And I thought, why does it matter if these plants die? Like, who is telling me I have to be so perfect? And I've had these realizations before, but this one sent me, this time I ended up in the emergency room because I was in so much pain. My body had just shut down. I had excruciating headache. I couldn't walk or drive because it hurt so much. And so I got myself to the emergency room, and they gave me 1 million tests, including a CAT scan, and they couldn't find anything. And so they sent me home. And then a couple of days later, I called the doctors again, and I said, I think I found a shingle. I said, I think I have shingles. And the doctor, she was it was just a weekend thing on video, so I didn't know her. And she said, you know what? She said, they tested you for everything. And she said, you know what? You weren't just good, you were perfect. And I said, well, could you tell me more about perfect? And so she started reading all the tests, and there was a lot of tests. And then she said, maybe you're just becoming a little more like us. And something in my brain, when she said you're perfect, I honestly think I'm going to die all the time. Like, I just think I'm going to die. And I don't really understand what she means about perfect. Like, how could I have this body that's about to die and have the stuff be perfect? I feel like maybe she's a new doctor. But I also heard her. And when she said that, my body settled, and I realized, oh God, this is all in my head. Like, I'm so afraid of leaving Spirit Hill and starting someplace new that my body is shutting down. And this is what's happened to me as an adopted person over and over, like leaving for college or leaving for camp. My body starts to shut down and I get sick, and then I can't go to the new thing. But I realized I have been given this heavenly place to live during COVID. And now I get to go to Boston and do another heavenly thing. And either I can drag my problems with me, or I can believe that it can be different. And for as frightening as it is, like, it's not even like becoming a butterfly. It's like shedding everything and walking out as nothing, like having nothing, no body, no, because I think it's trauma that outlines my body. It's trauma that helps me know where I am in the world. So if I'm not that, I'm just lightness. And I don't trust lightness because I get oriented by pain and anxiety. But I don't want to do that anymore. Because if my test scores are perfect, then I don't want to fuck that up. Like the universe keeps delivering really great things to me, and I just keep spitting in it, and I don't. And so part of it is, how much can I take off my plate? That I think I need a lot of rest. I think that just being in this body requires me to do a lot of nothing, and that I don't have to perform to prove my worth, and that I don't have to earn a lot of money because I can just spend less. And I can just calm the fuck down.
I think when you talk to me about the essence of your trauma and the dilemma, and you say things like, I'm going to go to college and I get sick. I'm going to start a job or a relationship, or someone wonderful comes in my life and I collapse, like in on myself, collapsing. So we were talking before, and I have to be mindful as I speak about this, not to divulge too many people's identities, but I want to just mention here publicly that I have, after all my searching, since 2005, I've identified and found my biological father and two sisters. And I want to just refer to that because I remember when I first found the first person, which was a sister. And again, I can't say names right now because of their privacy, hopefully sometime soon. But I got sick. I mean, I got diverticulitis and was inept. And this is where I'm going with this, because you know all about GI stuff. Now, we're going to talk in a minute about the stuff that only we can talk about and put a smile on our face. Shit. And it really was unbelievably painful and distressing, and CAT scan and antibiotics and doctor and another doctor. And this was 2 weeks after I had had a colonoscopy, when they told me, you're fine. You're perfect, right? Just like you said. Then all of a sudden, the most beautiful person came in my life. And we absolutely fell in love with each other, the way adoptees do, or the way sometimes siblings and mothers and their children do when they unite or reunite. And this absolute, just unbelievable reflection of that, unfortunately, was what you talked about, being, identified by the trauma. And I was in that place of understanding as it was happening, why it was happening. Wow. And not judging it, I've learned, like you have, to kind of work within those moments and find the self-compassion.
How did you do that?
Well, it's practice, right? It's this beautiful sense of understanding that, I'm not that child kicked to the side of the road anymore. I cannot be abandoned ever again. I can be left in the fear of bonding with this person who I never met in my entire life. We're in our 50s, for goodness sake. So we're going, brother, sister, I love you. We haven't even met physically, but it's this enormous connection of happiness and joy. And I recognized right then the risk that I was going to feel the fear that, of course, you're going to leave me. But I've worked so hard over the years, and you and I have both done this, to really understand, as Nancy Verrier says, we can never be abandoned again, right? We are capable, and that's what you're talking about. I'm capable of taking a day off. I'm capable of not answering the phone call or the text and not being knee-jerk to things. I'm capable, not always good at it, but I have the capability of not being reactive, but being responsive. And there's all these things, but it really hadn't added up until, like you said, a week ago, or the last couple of months, when I started to really put that last piece of mindfulness, self-compassion into place. But I've been practicing mindfulness for a dozen years. And I've been practicing mindfulness, self-compassion for a little bit over a year. These tool sets, I'm unbelievably grateful for them, but I'm also unbelievably astounded that I've earned them, worked towards them, and accepted them in my life. I'm not great at it, but I don't have to have that gyro in my head take over. Still there, just doesn't have to take over anymore.
Wow, that's amazing.
Can we talk about GI stuff for a minute?
Yeah.
It's, if anyone's listening and watching this, you notice we're smiling and laughing a bit here because these are topics that most folks don't dig into too much, and we can do it and not fall off of our chairs and actually somehow, some way, enjoy talking about poop and enjoy talking about, gas and guts, our guts. They say the gut is the second brain. You've kind of researched that a lot. So tell us how your gut's doing these days.
Well, I had a gut breakthrough where when I was sick and lying in bed a lot, I was thinking about Liz Koch is this person. She does a lot of work with the psoas, and I took some online classes with her. And she believes that when the fetus is created, there's a streak of empty space around which we are created. And so I just think of this sort of like a brushstroke of emptiness. And my gut has never been a place in the depths of my gut. I've always believed there's like this kind of burnt black piece of yuck, poison that is not comfortable. And I was thinking about how my gut hurt and how my brain hurt. And I was thinking about the vagus nerve, how the vagus nerve goes from the brain all the way through all the organs and then basically to the bottom of your intestines and then goes back up, and how just a portion of the vagus nerve as it travels from the brain down to the organs is telling the organs how you're doing. And I think it's something like 20%. And the others, 80% or so, is information going from the organs back to the brain, telling your brain how you're doing. And I realized, I think I just have to condition my vagus nerve. And so because I'd been in bed for so long and I was bored out of my mind, I really became the vagus nerve. And, before I thought about it, but now I was it. And it's this beautiful wandering nerve. It has many tentacles. It's really pretty. And I worked at this, where I filled the vagus nerve full of nectar, this really sweet honey looking like nectar. And I worked with, on the inhale, I went from the bottom of the vagus nerve and on the inhale, I went from the bottom of the vagus nerve all the way up the tendrils. I pulled all the liquid all the way up to my brain. And what it was telling me was, you're safe, you're safe, you're safe, you're safe. And then on the exhale, I would go back down and I would follow the vagus nerve and I would feel it touch all my organs and say, you're safe, you're safe, you're safe. And, as with any meditation, I would last about 20 seconds and then I would forget what I was doing. But I got to interview John Kabat-Zinn recently, who he went to MIT and he brought mindfulness to the public in really interesting ways. He brought it into hospitals, into well-being, and interviewing him was amazing. That guy is so centered. My dog had a squeaky toy, and halfway through our interview, my dog started doing the squeaky toy thing, and he never flinched, and he was so grounded, and he made me feel so important because his attention was entirely on me. And I thought, I want that. I want whatever that guy has. I want that. And so that's what drove me to keep going back and forth to the vagus nerve. And I do it all the time now. I'm able to sit in meditation and to actually be in my vagus nerve and to feel that the sweetness of it touching my brainstem, filling my brain, and then going all the way down my abdomen. And then that means that my whole body has become full of nectar instead of black poison. And the thought that allowed me to do this was the idea that there's a streak of emptiness inside of me, and no one can touch that. Nobody did that. Nobody created that. My mother didn't create it. My father didn't create it. None of them have touched it. It's mine, and it's okay to have. So all of a sudden, this emptiness that could be the very worst thing about us, right? Like despair, loneliness, becomes holy, and it's safe and it's sacred. And so for some reason now I have access to this place inside of me that it's okay for it to be there. And so my job is to feed it. My job is to honor it. And if I have thoughts come in like, oh, have you, is blah, blah upset with you? Or did you do blah, blah? Those thoughts are outside of the sweetness of the vagus nerve. And I can pay attention to them if I want, but I have to understand that I could be in sweetness or I could be in chatter. And I'm choosing, do I want my life to be chatter or do I want my life to be sweetness? And a lot of times I would choose chatter because that's what I'm comfortable with. Like that's, it's like, would you prefer to have a nail pounded into your hand? Well, yeah, if that's what was done to me my whole life, maybe yes, just because I don't know what it would be like if that didn't happen. But because I'm getting older now and I'm aware that I don't have that many years left, I think I'd rather just try for sweetness and not know what's going to happen.
Wow, that uncertainty is sometimes you're saying and not know how it's going to end up, but then trusting. There's a sense what I call is intuition, right? We intuitively change in the way that we know how to handle things, or we know how to kind of process things even as we're afraid. I love that I am, and you and others, we're still afraid. We still have the trauma. We still have that emptiness. And the word it's been magical for me. I can, you first thing you said to me was like, Kevin, you seem so happy. And I'm also struggling with 10 different things. I can be happy even. And I mean that word happy was so elusive, and I still don't know how to say it and not go, oh no, I don't really mean that. I mean, I'm content. I mean, I'm doing okay. I'm happy. And I'm not going to let go of that. I'm just not, it's not just that I'm going to accept it. I'm going to say, what, it's my choice to throw that away. And now I can intuitively move forward. You mentioned, and I wanted to ask you, your dog, what's your dog's name?
Bird.
Yeah. And there's no squeaky toy going there, but if there is, I'm going to try to stay as
He's
centered as I
out.
can. I'm going to try to impress. When you originally read my book, I kept the copy because you gave it back to me. It's actually here. And it's, some things are treasures, and only a few people wanted paper copies. You were one. And I had it here and I was just shuffling it because it's out of order now and it's just all loose leaf. And it starts on page 13 with age 10. And it talks about my dog, Major. It's actually my father's dog. So I was thinking about Bird, and, there's some pictures that I've seen. Okay, 1,000 pictures that I've seen that you post of this amazing creature that has just infiltrated your soul. And then I read this. It occurred to me, if I had to give my dog away, I would never, ever, ever want to see him again because my heart could not stand it. This helped me understand why perhaps my mother never, ever wanted to see me. You wrote that, and I wanted to expound on that, if you would, because we were talking about empathy and compassion and self-empathy and self-compassion. I mean, I'm sorry to drag you through this because it may be not the most fun thing, but Bird's there with you now. Tell us what that means. Why did you write that? And how did you find that settled with you, that level of, I guess, the compassion and empathy for my birth mother in the most unexpected places? Tell me about that.
Yeah, that makes me teary because, I mean, I battle giving him away every day. And I had arranged to give him away. And my friend that I was going to give him to said, I'll send you pictures. And it occurred to me, I didn't want anything. Like I didn't ever want to see him again. I just wanted to cut it, because if I saw him again, I would be reminded that I was the person that gave him away. And I can't, that person is so, I would be that person and I wouldn't know how to be that. I wouldn't, it's it hurts my brain even to think about. And then I just thought, oh my gosh, of course, so many birth mothers don't want to see their kids. Like, to give something away like that is so inhumane, because it's in connection that we are human. And when you break that connection, you have done something that is, I think, unthinkable. And I'm incredibly amazed by how little empathy I had for my birth mother. And I can understand why her family is so upset with me, and doesn't want anything to do with me. And now when I hear adoptees talk about their birth parents, I feel like, wow, we are a rough crowd. We're like children with knives.
That's the understatement of the decade.
Yeah.
We are a rough crowd.
Yeah, we are. We are scary. We'll cut you. I mean, no one wants to be abandoned, but to abandon is, I believe, worse.
That's really insightful, and it takes a long time for us to get there. You and I didn't get there overnight, and I know that was a painful thing for you to write and think about, and to bring it here is a little bit painful. And I want people to hear us and see us smiling in light of that awful, unendurable.
Yeah,
it's just impossible to even imagine enduring something like being abandoned. And
but sometimes you have to give something away. Like sometimes I need to be able to give my dog away if it doesn't fit into my life, and a woman needs to be able to give her child away if the woman doesn't feel that she can take care of the child. It's so complicated.
And it's an endurance that is beyond imagination. And I think years ago, not too long ago, too bad, I lost someone, young man, Shia, beautiful, beautiful young man, died of a fentanyl overdose, and his mother and I were very close. One day, his mother and I were at dinner, and by the way, he was adopted also. And we were sitting and talking at dinner, and she was mourning. It was even a couple of years later, and the grief was just so prominent. And she said, "It's so hard for me because, I know people don't understand, and I wish they could just imagine." And I didn't want to, but I will say I acquiesced. And I took that second to close my eyes. It was hard, sitting at dinner in a restaurant. And I imagined my own son. I mean, I couldn't do it for more than, I think, a millisecond, because as soon as I got there, I had to just escape. It was almost terrifying, that I was asked. And then I realized the terror that, I felt even being asked. I would never be able to understand the terror of what she was experiencing, morning, noon, and night. And so when we talk about enduring, an adoptee has to endure a great deal. A great deal. You and I are talking about GI issues and all these different things, and they're all very valuable for us to explore and support each other. The important thing for me is to remember that other people are also enduring and have their own, and they're not good or bad people. They're just people that are enduring. Because if I'm not a good or bad guy, then I'm just a guy that's enduring something. So is Anne. She's my Saint Anne, but she's no saint. And we can laugh, and then I wonder sometimes, and this is my hope, and this is my dream, right? Because I did find my biological mother. Unfortunately, she had died, but I got to talk to my siblings, and I learned, yes, that she had that endurance. And my sister did tell me that it hurt her to leave me, But I found out that she had a life of laughter too. And she raised 3 children, and she rode horses. And I found out, and all of a sudden I wasn't angry anymore. And recently I found who my biological father is. And unfortunately, again, I'm never going to meet him. He's passed. And some people that I've talked to have been, and they're not even adopted, and they're angry at him. How could he, the freaking narcissistic bastard. I mean, literally, really angry. And I'm not there. And I'm learning about him now and finding out what color eyes he had, and that he liked to play golf, and that he did these different things. And I'm looking at him as a human being. I'm wondering if you could just talk for a minute, and let's see if we can go to the last part of the constellation, if is a last part, but the triad as we know it, and talk about maybe your understanding of compassion empathy for adoptive parents.
Mm.
Can you tell us a little bit about your thoughts there?
Yeah, I feel like I have mixed feelings about adoptive parents. There's some, the other day there was a picture posted of an adoptive parent, an adoptee, and a birth mom, and I sent it to a friend and I said, guess which is which? And it took her, a half a second. And I have to say there was something predatory in the adoptive mom's face. And I hear enough stories where I hear horror stories, of adoptive moms locking the cupboard so the kids can't scavenge food, kids who need to hoard food. Or I hear stories of adoptive moms locking their kids in their bedroom so they can't get food at night. I hear stories that really upset me, and I can find compassion for the adoptive parents in that they think they don't know what they're dealing with, because they can't, because if they did, they wouldn't be doing what they're doing. But I wish, so I get blinded by anger because what I see is mistreatment of children who are already in pain. But I know there's so many adoptive parents that come to me pretty much on their knees, just like, how can I be better? And I have so much compassion for them because I feel like there's almost nothing you can, like, in a funny way, there's so much you can do. And in another way, there's almost nothing you can do because you adopted a tornado, and the tornado is always going to be a tornado. And so it's going to rip through your lives, in one way or another. And that's its job because that's how it was born. And I wish for all of us, I feel like in different ways, adoptive parents, adoptees, and birth moms have this girdle made of iron around them, just squeezing the life out of them. And it's full of should have and could have and would have. And it just makes them not as human as they really are. And there's this innocence to all of us but I think it would require, just like you with your friend, actually feeling the other person's, letting ourselves feel the other person's pain, and then just sitting across the table and just feeling it so that they don't have to suffer it alone. And I think each of their pains of the three parts of the triad are so exquisitely terrible that we end up having a boxing match with each other instead of just holding each other and sobbing.
There's that holding each other and sobbing. There's two pieces to that. I keep using the words empathy and compassion, and the differentiation between empathy and compassion was profound to me when I understand just the basics of it. Even that empathy is, I feel your pain, right? And compassion, and I have a way of saying it just for myself, I sit with you. I sit with you. I'm not going to judge you or not judge you. I'm not going to try to help you or not help you. I can't figure it out and I can't make it better. And I definitely don't want to try to make it worse. When I lost someone a few months back, really, really dear friend, people posted, I mentioned it on social media, and people said, so I'm so sorry for your loss and sad. And one person, that's where I got those words. All she said was, I sit with you, period, and left it there. I cried and cried and cried, because that's all I really need. I don't need someone to fix this. They can't bring them back, can't undo that deed. And that's what I understand compassion to be. That person is going to hopefully sit with me. And
I love that. I think if there was, I sound bitter right now, and so I guess I am, but I feel like if adoptive parents as a group, if their mantra wasn't, I want to make you better, or I can fix you, if it was instead, I will sit with you, I feel like adoption would be a different experience.
I mean, you and I are both feeling the sand thing, right? Because everyone, I mean, our whole lives, and we're from a certain generation, we're baby scoop people and stuff like that. And there was just an understanding, just, be the best, parent you could be. And, it's just like a bird, they'll call you their mother. And, there was this whole misunderstanding, and I don't blame my parents anymore. I just don't, because gosh, they could have done better. And, I'm sure, there was just information that wasn't at their fingertips. I think that for me, one thing I recognized is they wanted to make some change, some adaptation. And they thought it was just, he'll get used to it and then he'll be fine. And they just wanted that part to be over. They wanted the tornado to stop. They just wanted the tornado to stop. And it would quiet sometimes, but it would always be there. I love that analogy. It's a wonderful, wonderful metaphor, a way of really looking at that's what, and sitting with a tornado, I sit with you and sticking with, that's endurance. So I wanted to really kind of get to that. And I think that we endure a lot. And I think birth mothers endure a lot. And decisions were made when someone gives up a child. No decision was made in my case. For me, I didn't make the decision. An adoptee doesn't decide to be relinquished. We just are. And then adoptive parents make decisions. And I think that you're right, that what would be important for them to realize is this is what you're signing up for. And it is going to, you are going to have to endure if you can. And if you can't, to human is to forgive, it's whatever it is, something divine, I forgot. I'm going to forgive you for being human. It's just a lot of damage that gets done when the expectations of an adoptive parent are that this child will acclimate fully and be able to become somebody that I don't have to worry about anymore because, I've done the best I can. You can't do it. You have no skill sets and you actually don't have that kind of power, but you can sit with me no matter what. You can sit with me. And I think the important thing about that is that if you're going to stick it out, if you're going to endure that, if you're going to sit with me, then eventually maybe I'll start to understand that not everybody abandons me. Maybe I'll find that out.
It's brilliant, Kevin.
We're trying, aren't we?
Yes, we're trying.
Just trying. I want you to, I want to thank everyone, today, and Anne's going to tell us a little bit about somebody named Joyce and what you're up to, please, if you would.
Oh, thank you. So Pam Cordano and I have been doing these Flourish classes all year long, and I've really loved them. And they end in December, and Pam's practice is very busy, so she has to kind of move her schedule around. And I'm moving to Boston, and Joyce McGuire Paveo, what's funny is that I actually am not sure how to pronounce her last name, and I've known her for so long, but every time I see her, I'm not thinking about asking her how to pronounce her last name. She was the first adopted therapist I ever talked to. And I just talked to her briefly on the phone once when I was coming out of the fog, and I just thought she was the most incredible. I just wanted to follow her around like a baby bird. And when I lived in Boston for a little bit, she and I would go out to dinner often. And she was one of the trailblazers in adoption therapy. She was at Harvard a long time ago. And she's this amazing resource that we have, our community has. So I asked her if she would do these Hour of Power classes with me Sunday mornings from 9:30 to 10:30 a.m. for 7 months starting in January. And so we're going to do them via Zoom, and Joyce will kind of share a lot of what she's learned and she knows, and I'll be doing some writing things off and on. So I can't believe I get to work with her, so I feel really happy.
That's a wonderful joy. Is there information that people can get about that now?
Yeah, if they email me at anneheffron at gmail.com, ANNEHEFFRON, I'll send them information.
Fantastic. And we'll have all the links down below. So if you want to email Anne, or you want to find her on the blog, or you want to go to Twitter and read some of those marvelous posts, you can. And thank you so much for spending time with us today. Anne Heffron, author of You Don't Look Adopted, blogger, writing coach, and please make sure you give her an email, send her an email. And if you have time in January, she and Joyce will be starting the Hour Power classes that will run for about 7 months. I am so grateful for your time today. It's so lovely to see you, my own personal Saint Anne. Thanks for your time.
Well, Kevin, you fed me. Your brain is so wonderful. Thank you. Yeah.
We'll see you again soon, I'm sure. In Boston, you're coming
in
home.
Boston, we can have lunch again. Yay.
I'm never going to let you go.
That's all right.
Never. Thanks so much, my friend.
Bye, Kevin.